So this will be another follow along type of situation. I'm gonna do a 20-minute session of kettlebell snatches with 24 kilograms using the quick and dead style training, another aerobic style training session. I'll comment a little bit today about how and when I use this type of training for my own practice. That way the context of when to use tools like this versus any other training program is there. So without further ado.
Exercise.
All right. First set. One of the things I want to focus on in this video is making sure that my elbow is as far back as it should be. One of the perks to recording your own training is you get to watch yourself and critique yourself, right? Like, if you were your own client, how would you make yourself better? And I noticed in the first video, although my technique was technically good enough, my hand was a little more anterior than I'd like, given the speed I was doing it. So what am I doing today? Really emphasizing the elbows back aspect of this movement.
Exercise.
During the recovery, I'm going to work on some of these movements just to keep the shoulder from getting too tight. From a Filipino martial arts background, these are referred to as angle 1 and 2 strikes. 1 is a forehand, 2 is a backhand. We can do more sophisticated things if we wish, but it's time for the next set.
Recovery.
Or technically time to recover, which is probably when I'll do most of my talking. On the next set, I'll do the same thing with my right arm. What I'll do is one cycle on left, stick work left, second cycle on right, stick on right, back and forth. What that means is my left arm will get a little bit more volume than my right. And that's fine, right? My dominant arm, my strong arm, and my other strong arm, that type of mindset, is it's okay to give my left arm a few more reps because my right arm gets enough action during my other training. This is about as close as I can get to training with a lot of my guys who are a bit more remote. So technically, this is like a follow along, right? If you know these movements, then you know what to do. What I tend to want people who are running this to practice is during the rest phase between sets, do something active, but during the long rest, the recovery cycle between, or the recovery interval between cycles. This tends to be deep breathing work or something gentle. Because this is a video, right? Because I'm recording and teaching them, this is mostly when I'm going to talk. When I do this on my own, then this is typically when I'm doing something a bit more mobility-ish, right? About 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Getting everything set. Right side.
Exercise.
An alternative is to do footwork drills. Really, it's whatever you need it to be.
Exercise.
What you do during these rest periods is really up to you. I like to use it to practice the movements I'm actually held accountable for.
Recovery.
One of the things you have to be careful about when you're training is that you're staying on target, or that rather that your training is driving you towards your goal, right? If your goal is to be the biggest guy, then frankly this doesn't serve you that well. It builds a cardiac base, but if you're going for hypertrophy, there's smarter ways to do that, right? Likewise, if you're going for speed, for power, for stamina, right? Make sure your training puts you on a path that you want to be on. One of the issues with doing too much bell work is you get very good at the sagittal plane. You often lose out on rotational movements, which is very important for other activities, right? I've commented on my martial arts background. I'm literally swinging a stick, you know what I mean? It's important to make sure that this is the conditioning to make me better at the things I care about. What you don't want to do is get so obsessed with the conditioning that you're like the fittest guy, but now you can't do the thing you want to do. Like, who cares about being the best exerciser, right? Like, unless your job is to be a great exerciser, right? Then this is the means to an end, not the end itself. The place where I challenge that is folks who train just for wellness, or, oh, I train to be healthy, and I'm like, that's great, but what does that mean? Because healthy can mean anything formally, right? The way our language is set up, the absence of disease in English is sufficient to mean health, but that's not necessarily the case, right? So healthy for me means that I can handle relatively violent situations. I want to be athletic and fit enough and skilled enough.
Exercise.
To not be a liability. All right, that means I need to be able to carry my own weight, literally. But it's also, God forbid, my kids need help. I don't want my fitness to be the reason my kids can't get help. You should be thinking, what weird scenario am I in if that's the case? There's a warped wall in a park by my house. And my kid, small as she is, figured out a way to climb the dang thing. And I never thought I'd have to run up a warp wall in my life, because I don't care about that stuff. Guess what I learned to do real fast when she was stuck up there?
Exercise.
My oldest is at the point where he wants to ride a bike, but my young ones do too, and they all move at different speeds. So I need to be able to keep up with all of them at the same time, in different directions. For those who pay attention, there's a longboard back there. I taught myself how to do that pretty recently. because the longboard, tactically, was the solution
Recovery.
to the question of being able to generate a lot of speed and agility while keeping up with these kids out in the parks and in like playgrounds and whatnot. Did everything got right longboard? No. Is it cool? Totally. But to have the fitness required to onboard a brand new task at 35 and not pay for it in back pain, right? I joke, it feels like aging backwards. And I'm picking up all these new skills as a parent, physical skills, so that my kids can see what a grown-up can do. And frankly, because I want to keep up with my kids, right? My daughter ran up a warped wall. I better be able to run up a warped wall too. Stuff like that. The kettlebell snatches, the quick and dead training, what I like about it so much is that it's a very focused stress on the heart to force very good cardiac adaptation. I typically run intervals, programs of quick and dead training or like proper A&A training, which I'll probably do in later videos. Because whereas A&A training gives me a very strong cardiac base to go for a long time, what this does is help me maintain high power output for a long time. Because it's not just about how long you can last, it's about how long you can maintain a certain level of performance, right? This helps me perform better in that normal activity does not strain my heart the way that it would have prior. Yeah. Basically, I want to be fit enough in terms of my cardiovascular health that the demands of parenting and my martial arts becomes negligible. I was talking to another one of my patients, and the idea is I want his heart so strong that training is a cognitive task
Exercise.
rather than a physical trial, so I can focus on his tactics. I got a lot of our guys doing this type of training now. The quick and dead, high power, high recovery style. And what they do is they practice their skills between. So now they get to practice in a controlled setting, doing their thing under a little fatigue, under a little sweat. If you notice, I don't have my mic on. Because I learned
Exercise.
that there's so much sweat when you train like this. It was actually getting up in the mic. It was kind of gross. So I'll say that for the shorter videos. This is also probably one of the most efficient ways I know for burning fat, which matters in this environment. It's too easy to put on weight when you're not paying attention in this place. Now that's a good problem to have, right? I'd rather have this than starve, but
Recovery.
that doesn't make it not a problem. It just makes it a first world problem. How do you enjoy the luxuries of all this, but not get sick because of it? You have to impose difficulty, impose training stress, because the food's right there, right? Like, it's hard to go hungry in this country, but it's very easy to be undernourished, because those aren't the same things. At the same time, it is so easy to make a living, again, historical picture, compared to what it would have been before, that in a cognitive enough environment, the body tends to fall to the side. This type of training, for reasons I'll probably get into later on, gets the muscles very hungry for glucose. And that's valuable because the primary glucose sink in your body is actually the muscle, right? The hungrier your muscles they are, the more they can absorb. The more they can absorb, the more food you can tolerate. All right, but notice how I'm phrasing it. It's, oh, I need you to train hard enough to tolerate your food. It's crazy. But it's also legitimate, right? If we're gonna have a diet of affluence, if we're gonna have a diet of basically of feasting as the default state, right? If calories are de facto infinite, then you either need to impose a fasting protocol to counteract that feast, like feast and famine together, or you need to create a body that can leverage all that energy to do something not self-destructive. Because without this type of training, right? Without that kind of training, the American diet will make you sick. But with good training, that same diet powers some pretty damn good activity.
Exercise.
It's not that hot today. It's only like 90 something degrees, which in Texas is not that hot. But training in an air conditioned garage in the heat willingly, it takes something, you know? But what that means is my heart can handle the heat outside.
Exercise.
Switching from a very high adrenaline to a low adrenaline state is a good skill to have.
Recovery.
So again, this is the quick and dead training done at 24 kilograms with a snatch. The other way to do this traditionally, like from the book, is using swings and push-ups, which I think I demonstrated before at a shorter interval. They're both good. The reason I do this one is because it saves me about 10 minutes of work, right? And frankly, I know that one of my standards is I have to do 100 of these in 5 minutes without panic. It has to be calm, it has to be clean. So because of what I'm up to, because of my accountability, I have to stay good at these, independent of the martial work. To be fair, I like them, so I have no resistance to it. But you should hear that the reason I choose this lift is because it serves a specific goal. If not for the test, I'd probably do this type of training with swings and push-ups, maybe even burpees actually, because that would fit very well with the level changes and the things you need to be able to do outside of training, outside of this type of physical conditioning. The problem is burpees at high volume, it takes some skill. And one of the things that happens is, this is easy for me to reproduce at fatigue, right? God forbid I cross fatigue threshold. With burpees, because of the nature of how the lumbars have to flex and all the setup, I'm not opposed to it, I've done it before, but it's something that I do as a backup tool when I don't have access to bells, right? If all I have is my body weight and a timer, then I'll do that. But if there's any gear, I'll try to leverage that gear to do it more productively. Hey, look at that. That's 20 minutes. And that's session 4.
Done. Great workout.